far as I know, and it was just, there was somewhere here, back here.
Yeah.
And there was a formal pier as well that disappeared.
They've been asking, I said they always ask, people just can't get them with you.
But we didn't know that, but I've never heard
Well,
that.
I did say, well, people are prepared to buy them, or that's why I said if we had less. All right, see if we put this one.
Brawo, zobaczymy co... Czy my to jest? Gdzie to jest?
Double agent, his name was Brutus. There's a couple of the three over there. You've got the OBE over there. Look at there's two footers together. He was double agent.
No.
He told the Germans in the wrong location.
They were the three pilots who were in the same plane.
World War, so they gave him the OBE.
Was in when it crashed. They removed them to see why they died.
So these are three former presidents that are buried here in the cemetery.
No.
And 1, 2, 3. And then General Sikorsky was buried here for 50 years.
Okay. Yeah.
In 1993, on 13th of September 1993.
I don't know. Talk to Dan.
And he went back to Poland.
I don't know. We tend to get them after.
Welcome to Newark Cemetery. It was opened in 1856. Since 1940, we have the Commonwealth War graves, which are being buried here since that time. We should be grateful to the 400 and so Polish that have been buried here. Many have been added after the war, which are on the left-hand side. We got the gentleman here was Brutus, who was a double agent. He worked for the Germans and also the British, and he gave the Germans the wrong.
Watch of an hour.
He gave the Germans the wrong location, which helped us to put the Germans in the wrong location during the Second World War. So we should be grateful to this man who helped us win the war. It wasn't for the Polish and the Commonwealth that helped us as well. We have 17 Canadians buried in Newark Cemetery. We've got 4 from Australia and 3 from New Zealand. And there's over 35 British also in the Commonwealth War graves. So we should be grateful to all the people that helped us out during the Second World War, especially the Polish that helped us for their freedom and ours. They had low flying reconnaissances and they crashed, which was very unfortunate. So we got a lot of Polish that crashed because they were trying to find very low, and they either hit the trees or the power lines. And we also got Canadian and Australian had the same problem as well. The 300 Squadron, 301, 305 and so forth. So we've got many Polish squadrons that came here to help us out during the Second World War. And they're all buried here. There's 397 that were actually buried here. And many were actually added after the war. And they chose to be buried in the cemetery. We should be grateful to also the Canadians that are also buried here. There are 17 from the Air Force, 4 from Australia and 3 from New Zealand. But the majority in the cemetery are from Poland, which we should be grateful for their contributions by helping us out during the Second World War. We had General Sikorsky was on his flight in 1943. We had also had 3 also who were killed, and they were actually buried in the cemetery. They got exhumed 3 years ago, and now they're taken back to Poland. And there was a general, and like I said, they were exhumed and they examined them to find out what caused their death. So as you see, there's a big gap here. There's quite a few Polish that have gone back to Poland after the last few years. We've got 3 Canadian. They all died with the British on the 26th of May 1944. So their anniversary is coming up, no doubt. We should be grateful to the whole crew of them were killed, and 3 Canadian and 4 RAF were killed on the same aircraft on the 26th of May 1944. and they're all buried in the cemetery here in Newark. We have other ones that also had air crashes who also died in the cemetery, and they're put together as well as best they can. So we should be grateful to all the Canadians. There's 17 buried in here, and we also got 4 from Australia and 3 from New Zealand. So, and there's over 35 British from the Air Force and other squadrons that are also buried here to the present day. The youngest person who's actually buried here was a cadet, and he was only 16 when he got killed. He had a flying exercise and the plane crashed, and they chose to be buried here in the cemetery, and he was only 16, so he's the youngest boy that died, an air cadet. But on the 7th of March 1941, the Germans dropped 10 bombs on the factory, and the factory is still run today, and we've got 30 actually scattered around that are buried in the cemetery. So we had our own experience during the Second World War being bombed, not as bad as Manchester or in London, but we had that experience. And now over here there's also other Polish that are also buried here after the war, and they've got their old stones here. As you can see how old they are. We've got 3 presidents that are buried in a cemetery in Newark. I don't understand why they never went back at the same time as Sikorsky, but they're still buried in here. And we've got ancestors who still come to visit the cemetery. And this is the first one. He died in 1947, age 62. And then this president took over. And then the 3rd president took over. And because Poland was taken over by the Russians, they all chose to be buried in the Newark Cemetery. And now, as you see, they are still buried here. And as I didn't know nothing, I'm from London originally. I moved to Newark in 1979. And I got involved in the Newark Cemetery with the Friends of Newark Cemetery in 2005. And I'm the chairman of the Friends of Newark Cemetery, and we try and help people locate their ancestors and graves of people who want to find out where they are buried. So if anybody wants to volunteer for Friends of Newark Cemetery, they can go on Facebook or tap in Friends of Newark Cemetery in a Google and contact us. We want to have many people come and visit Newark Cemetery, which is today this is this 160th anniversary of the cemetery being opened, and it happened opened on 30th of October 1856. So today is the 160th anniversary of Newark Cemetery being opened for the first burial. Let's take it out. I lost one already now. Oh, I've got 2 now. Yeah. I'll put the first one on. Mm-hmm. I can't see very good. My eyes are not as good as yours.
We've got more badges than
I know. I've got
this is the
British, Australia, Air Force,
Canada,
and New Zealand.
New Zealand. Is it New Zealand? That's
Kiwi. They're all buried in the cemetery here. We've got Air Force here. We've got the Canadians buried here as well. You see, so that's why I put them on.
Mm-hmm.
So we should be grateful to the Poles and the Canadians and Australian and New Zealand Air Force that are buried in Newark Cemetery. So people give me some of these pins sometimes.
We've met them in Ingham.
Oh yes, I've been
a couple months.
Names on the council there.
So where is the oldest section?
Well, this is all. They go way back from the very beginning, at the very end of the cemetery, and this is how this is the plate they laid here, all the names on there. So we've got one over here. John Henry Green. He worked at the Ramsden and Miles at the factory. John Henry Green was in the Home Guard, and he was 55 when he got killed in the Ramsden and Miles ball bearing factory in 1941. And his grandson lives in California. He contacted me, and he was grateful that we remembered him being anniversary. So every 7th of March 90, every year we remember the ceremony of the bombing of the factory, and should be grateful to him as well. We also got First World War graves here. We've got 49 scattered around here in 1914, the first one that buried here. So many regiments are buried in the cemetery here. First World War. These are all First World War. The Derby Regiment, Nottingham Derby Regiment. He was only 25, 1918. The first one is over here, that got buried from the First World War. He was a drummer, 22. He was the first one buried here. He was the first one to be buried in 1914. He got killed. So we've got many First World War graves here. Martin?
We have come here today as citizens of Britain, as citizens of Poland, and some as citizens of both countries, because of what joins us. A shared experience of threat and suffering, a shared duty of remembrance, and a shared bond that we acknowledge with pride.
Some tea. It's good. Cheers.
I didn't take your picture yet.
Oh.
You're the first American met in the family. Really? In all my years.
Really? Wow.
It's not very often. We've got no American.
Thank you.